Today I'm going to talk about how you can fit writing into your life no matter what your schedule is, and some tools that I use to keep consistently writing. I have been through so many phases of life during my writing career. There was a time that I was just married, working full-time, had all the time in the world, to getting pregnant, having a child, staying at home with my child, working at home with my child, and now I'm back to working full-time. If you connect with any of these, and I'm pretty sure you do, I'd like to go over these different instances in my life and how I fit writing into that schedule. My hope is that you can see yourself in any of these examples and know that the writing does not have to suffer because you think you don't have enough time. If you want to publish your book and make it a career, then you have to treat it like one. I'm going to move chronologically through my life from when I was just a gal in her 20s wanting to make her publishing dreams come true. For several years, I only wrote during NaNoWriMo. And if you don't know what NaNoWriMo is, it's National Novel Writing Month in November, where a community of writers all over the world try to write 50,000 words in 1 month. Every year, I love jumping in with a community of writers to write my book. Now, every year I did win, but then I didn't touch it again until October of the next year when I was prepping on what I wanted to do in November that year with the book. And then during November, I just focused on rewriting it and trying to make it better. I'm going to date myself here, but as social media started to take over, especially Twitter, I was starting to connect with other writers that I loved, and I saw that they were not so different from me. A lot of them still had full-time jobs, and so did I. So I thought, well, if they can do it, then I can do it. It definitely helped me push more into getting my book done. Now, my schedule for that time when it came to work was I worked a 40-hour-a-week job, rotating weekends because I did work in the medical field. So my writing schedule usually involved working at night and on the weekends, but mostly at night because I did go out a lot in my 20s and it was usually on the weekends. If you've seen any of my writing vlogs where I used to write at 5 in the morning, this is where that habit sort of came in. I used to have to get ready for work at 5 in the morning and be at work for around 6. So there was no way I was waking up at 3 in the morning to write my book. So I wrote at night. And then any of those weekends that I wasn't working, I would try to work on my book then. But it was mostly at night. Also at that time, we had bought a house, and it's a very old house, and it had a lot of old problems. So me and my husband were also renovating the house at that time as well, which did take up a lot of time. My advice for someone who has a similar schedule would be find those open spots in your day, in your week, and put writing in there. For me, that was nighttime and the weekends that I wasn't working. I always made the time for my writing because it was so important to me. Now, a lot of people can make time for what's most important to them, and I think at some point, if you really want to focus on getting published, you have to make your book that more important thing. After I secured my first contract with, at the time, was Carina UK, which was an imprint of Harlequin, I realized how different my life had to be at that point, because now I had a piece of paper and a whole team of people telling me when I needed to have my book in their hands. And of course, what's life without another schedule change? So at that point, at my full-time job, I was promoted to supervisor, which meant I was working a lot more than just the 40 hours a week and rotating weekends. So I kept my schedule with writing at night because, as I said, I had people waiting on me. So I would write after work and I would write on the weekends that I wasn't working. And I also added lunchtime to the mix. Now, if you look on Instagram, a lot of writers work during their lunch. At the time, I wasn't on Instagram, or maybe there wasn't Instagram, I'm not sure, but this was just sort of a process for me about finding time to write. And lunchtime was me sitting there for a half hour, just eating and socializing and scrolling on my phone. So what I did is some days I would take my laptop and just go write for 20 minutes or even 15 minutes, whatever I could do to get my writing in. It was necessary, so I did it. I think the added benefit of that too is if you were work maybe not a 9 to 5 and you work sort of weird hours, or even 9 to 5, if you're writing during your lunch hour or lunch half hour, you're able to sort of de-stress a little bit when it comes to the end of the day, because everyone is exhausted at the end of a work day, and the last thing most people want to do is sit down and write, but it has to get done if you want your book published. So that became my schedule for a while, as I was also given another contract after my debut trilogy. The next change in my life happened when I got pregnant. For a while, I was able to keep to my night and weekend and lunchtime writing sessions, but it was a lot harder when I had morning sickness and still I had that demanding job. And somehow I ended up drafting a book in my 3rd trimester, which I do not suggest. But through that, I learned how I could push myself more than I thought I could, which is probably not suggested when you're pregnant. And then after I had kiddo, there was a big shift in my life. It was chaotic, and I had new mom haze, where I was more exhausted than I had ever been in my entire life. This timing took a lot to get used to. So I worked when I could, and I made sure to take care of myself when possible. And then, when I finally thought I was settling in, I realized that infants do sleep a lot. So I worked on my books during my quiet hours, which was during kiddo's naps, and then I made sure when kiddo was awake, I was doing all of the things I should have been doing during nap times. But after a couple months of staying home and dealing with this new phase in my life, I started to really get that itch to write again. With traditional publishing, there are a bit of wait times, and I found that I was really wanting to write something else while I was waiting for edits or between contracts or anything like that. Now, I just want to quickly note that I understand that it was a great privilege for me to be able to stay home with kiddo, and I totally understand that, and that situation is not for everyone, and it was the best choice for my family. So at this point, I wanted to fill in those gaps of writing time, and I also wanted to contribute a little more to my family. Obviously, everyone wants to make money, so I looked into ghostwriting. And I also have a video about secrets of a ghostwriter. If you're interested in checking out that part of my life, I will link that in the cards above in the description box below. So at that point, nap times and evenings were my best time for writing. But as I started to gain clients, I needed a more concrete schedule. So at some point, I could time out kiddo's naps and work distraction-free during those times. And it worked for a little while. Now, there comes a time where kids start to drop naps, and that was not by choice. So my schedule changed again. So I returned to that schedule that I had prior to staying home. Now, as I said, I used to wake up at 5 in the morning, so I started to do that again, but instead of going to work, I came right to my desk and started working in the morning. So from about 5 to 7 in the morning, I was here working on my books, working on my clients' books. I tried to get as much done during this time because I found that I was most creative during 5 to 7 in the morning for some reason. Probably because I was used to it for so many years of working. Creative time is different for everybody, so I suggest that you try to figure out what time of the day that you are most creative and try to move your writing schedule around that. Once you find that time in your life, try to make writing a priority, and I guarantee you that book will flow a lot faster. Now, for a while, I thought working from home as a mother that I would have to do everything, but I also eventually found the importance of asking for help. Sometimes, well, usually when I was on a bigger deadline, I'd take a few hours for myself on the weekends. I'd leave kiddo at home with my husband and head off to the library or Panera or somewhere that I could write for a couple hours. Now, once kiddo was old enough to go to preschool, I paid for a couple days a week there so that I was able to get even more writing done. Now, this schedule did work for a while. It sort of had to because I had a lot of writing to do. I was able to block out specific times every week and make sure I got the most out of my writing time as possible. Now, in those years of ghostwriting, I wrote over 50 books for my clients and published my own as well. So finding time really does work. And as if my life couldn't change again. Last year, I went back to work full-time outside of the home and found another shift in my schedule. Now, those times where kiddo was at school, I was at work. So those chunks of time that I had were gone. And I couldn't write during those times because I was working. I tried for a couple months to keep up with the ghostwriting and my own books and my family and my life and my me time, and I did not succeed. So something had to change. I was burnt out and I was over it. So once I pushed through all of the deadlines that I had already promised, I took stock of what was important in my life then said goodbye to ghostwriting, and I went back to think about what I wanted to do with my books and my life. Now, this is very important because writing is work, yes, of course, and it's also a passion, but not at the risk of your health. I took what was important in my life, my family, my work, and myself, and I have been inserting my writing in the gaps between it. So right now, I'm currently basing my progress on my deadlines, whether they are through my publisher or myself. If I need to wake up at 5 in the morning before work to work on my books because of a deadline, I do it. If I have to work at night and weekends, I do it. Even my lunchtime. Or if I need to block off a couple nights a week or a couple mornings a week. You get the picture. Deadlines wait for nobody, whether it's for yourself or through a publisher, but showing your dedication will benefit you. Now that you have some insight to some schedules that may work for you if you identify with any of these circumstances, I'm going to go over a few tools that I have used to help me through all of these schedules. Now, throughout the years, I have had paper planners. I currently use a virtual planner on Google Sheets. But the one thing that has really helped me throughout all of the years, which I didn't really know had a name until more recently, is calendar blocking. So basically what you're doing is you're blocking out the times in your life that you are either busy, or you can block out times that you want to write, or you can do a bit of both. After I had kiddo and I was sort of figuring out my ghostwriting and things like that, I subconsciously did that. I found those chunks of time in my life and dedicated it to writing. So calendar blocking in itself is awesome. There are a million videos on YouTube on calendar blocking, and if you would like to learn how I do it, let me know in the comments and maybe I'll do a video on that for you. I also have a list of writing hack videos, an entire playlist about reverse outlining, using music, and writing sprints, and I will also link those in the description below and the cards above. And a more recent thing that I absolutely love are writing retreats. Now, when I talk about self-care, sometimes that means you just have to get away from your spouse, your friends, your house, your family, your kids, whatever. Writing retreats are so awesome. I went on one last year to the Highlights Foundation, and I have never been more productive in my entire life. And more recently, I was watching a video from fellow author tuber Marissa Mohi, and she was talking about writing retreats during the day. Just taking those blocks of time and creating a whole retreat around it, which I thought was so creative. I'll link her also in the description box below because I was blown away. Now, there will always be unexpected times in your life, sick days, anything like that, but don't let yourself be the reason that you are not writing. If writing is what you want to do, all you have to do is do it. If you can find time for Netflix and going out with friends and doing all of the social things, you can use that time for your writing time. Yes, it's a little bit of a sacrifice, but if this is something you want to do, then you need to make the time for it. Don't wish for a better schedule or more time in your life, because I guarantee you, if you actually take a look at your schedule, there is time there. It just may take a little sacrifice for a little bit. And you don't write the same book forever. There's usually a time limit on these things. So get that book down, start querying it or self-publish it yourself, and you will love where you are after you push through. I've been through it all. I have had that precious time in my 20s where I didn't have to answer to anyone other than my boss at work, but for the rest of the day I had to do nothing if I wanted to. But I never realized how precious that time was until my time completely changed. I don't regret any of my life choices, obviously. My kiddo and my husband, they bring me so much joy, but no matter what your schedule is, you always have time for your passion. Now, if you have any other questions about schedules or want to chat in the comments, let me know below. And if you enjoyed this video, do give it a like, hit that subscribe button and the little notification bell next to it so you know the next time I post, and I will see you soon.